Hello, good people of the world. We are going to be making over this dresser today. I am going to pull out all the saws and do all the things. We're going to be doing some woodworking on here. You're not going to recognize this piece when we're done with it. My client wants something that's a little bit neutral, but I told her we have to make this a statement piece. So we're going to be using some more neutral colors, but do not be fooled, everybody. It is going to be awesome. We are going to completely transform this. Just stay here. If you guys want to see that, keep watching. I started this makeover by removing the hardware. These are knobs that are made of wood and they do not have a screw on the other side. So I took a mini pry bar and my hammer and I just gently eased them out of their pre-existing hole. I wanted to show the natural wood on the top because it was so beautiful. So I took a chemical stripper and I applied it to the top of the piece so that I could strip the paint off. That way it would make my life a lot easier. When I strip, I always use a chemical stripper first and then I sand it. I do live in Germany, so this chemical stripper is only available here. I know that people ask that all the time, but that is the stripper I use here. Is a local one to Germany. And now I'm using my plastic scraper that has a scoop and I am scooping all of that paint off. I was done stripping the top of the paint. I went over it with mineral spirits to neutralize the chemical stripper, and I'm going to allow that to dry before I go in with my sander and sand it off. But this is latex paint on here and there's no need to completely strip it all off. What I'm going to do is go over the entire thing with my 3x4 electric ray with a 120 grit first, and I'm going to gently sand everything, not with the intention of taking all the paint off, but maybe to get any of the loose paint off that would not have a good base for me painting over top of it. My goal here is to get any paint that's compromised and anything that would cause bumps. So I'm smoothing everything out and I'm getting rid of all the compromised paint. Now, if you are taking a 120 grit sandpaper and you're going over it and it's not coming off easily, chances are you're probably not going to have a problem with that being underneath whatever paint you're using. But I've done this for years and years and years and never had a problem. So when you are painting over latex paint, you don't need to take everything off unless there are just so many layers and it's that bad. But there was only one layer on here and my client had painted it and she realized that she didn't like it, so we are just going to do a makeover for her. Surf Prep sanders do have hose attachments so that there's not dust, but I rarely use it when I'm outside and there is wind blowing. So when I want to get the dust off of my piece after I'm done sanding, I actually take my shop vac and I change where my hose is. So instead of putting it on the hose that sucks in, I go on the one that blows air out, and I take it and I blow all of the dust off of my piece before I bring it in the house. These drawers are super plain, and so I'm going to take thin pine strips. Some of them are 2 inches wide, some of them are 1 inch wide. You just take multiple sizes so that you can create character, and I am going to create a pattern on the top. So the first thing I did was I took 2 strips on the outside so that I could make them look like they are finished. And then you're going to watch me go through this entire process. So I'm going to measure the width of the drawer, and I'm going to cut 2 of those strips so that they're on the ends. You can use whatever pattern, whatever sizes that you want. So use your imagination with this. This is just how I did it. I have seen another girl do this, and she did a different pattern on each dresser, but I decided I wanted to have the same exact pattern going on all 8 of the dressers. So I'm going to walk you kind of through what I did. I'm not going to walk you through it. I'm going to video and show you what I did and how I kind of fitted things together, measured it, marked them, cut them until I got my final pattern that I wanted. I started out by laying down a strip on the edge, and then once I put the strip on the edge, I took my miter saw and turned it to 45 degrees, and I just cut the edge of a strip. So if you need triangles, make sure you are cutting the triangles off of a longer strip. That way you are not having your fingers close to that blade. So this is where I started. We're going to start with the one piece of wood on the edge, and then we're going to start with that little triangle, and we're going to tape that piece of wood in place, and I'm just going to start my pattern from there. Now, you can do whatever you want, but when you work in odd numbers, when you work in 1s and 3s, that's more aesthetically pleasing to the eye. So that's kind of where my head was at when I was doing this, was marking or doing 3s, like a pattern of 3s. So 3 sizes of each wood, and you'll see what I'm doing here. So I just diligently worked on this. And then, like I said, once I was completely done and I was happy with the pattern that I created, the tedious part comes in if you want everything to be the same. And so then what I did is I pulled each individual piece back off and cut matching pieces for each drawer so that everything, all the patterns would be the same. But you don't have to do that. You can just make a new pattern on each one, or you could only do this project on a 2-drawer chest or a 3-drawer chest. You don't have to do an 8-drawer chest like I did. brought the drawers upstairs, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put tape across them to keep them together, almost like a puzzle. And then I'm going to carefully flip the drawer over, and that way I know exactly where it needs to be. And that way, once I am done with that, I can put the glue on and I can glue them in place, and that way it is permanently on there. What I do is I take wood glue and I spread the wood glue evenly on here, so that way it will make sure that it secures the wood pieces. Once I have them all in place and I have everything spaced the way it needs to, then I take my brad nailer, my pneumatic nail gun, and I am going to brad nail all of them in there. Now, don't worry about if you have some that are overlapping the edges of the dresser drawers, because I'm going to take a mini circular saw and I'm going to trim the edges. You could do this with a mini circular saw. You could sand them down if you have the patience to sand them down all the way. You can take a rotary tool and do it, but don't worry about them being a little bit over, because you can always trim them back. You don't want them to be shorter than the drawers, because you can't make them longer, but if they're longer than the drawers, that's not a big deal. You can always trim them. I filled in all of the spaces and cracks and all the nail holes with a Dixie Belle's Dixie Mud. I am going to be using a gel stain for this, so it's not a stainable wood filler, but a gel stain will go over it and make it blend in. So you want to use whatever is going to blend into whatever the finishes that you want on here. If you're going to trim the edges, you don't want to get all crazy and start doing it without measuring. So I'm going to take a speed square and I am going to mark the edges that need to be cut off, so that way I know where to guide my saw. Otherwise, if you are not careful about it, you're going to go into the edge of your dresser drawer. So make sure that you're marking it, and maybe go just a tad bigger and then use your sander to sand down smooth. You're going to mark everything. I like to put painter's tape on the edges, because what it does is it helps it so that it doesn't splinter when you do cut that. And so I'm going to put my painter's tape along the edges, and then I'm going to take my mini circular saw and I am going to trim around all of the edges of the drawers. You could sand around all the edges of the drawers and smooth them and make them straight if you want to, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to round all the edges just to give it a more finished look. So you're going to see how meticulous I am when I am sanding. This is what I did for every single drawer. I stained each drawer with no pain gel stain in the weathered gray color, and I just lightly went over everything so that you could still see the wood grain, but it penetrated the wood and made sure that you couldn't see the white wood filler anymore. I am going to strip the remaining paint off the top of this dresser with my 5-inch orbital sander, random orbital sander by Surf Prep. I'm going to start with a 120 grit and I'm going to move up to a 220 grit. We are going to keep this as natural as possible. The grain on here is a little bit deep, so I'm going to take some white wax and go over it. But other than that, we're not going to do anything else to it. We're going to do the white wax, and then we're going to do a satin clear coat, and we're going to just kind of appreciate the beauty of the top of this. The next thing I'm going to do is clean the entire piece down with Dixie Belle's White Lightning Cleaner, and that way we can get it ready for paint. I'm going to use the Silk All-in-One Mineral Paint in the color Baja Gray. I'm going to do this and I'm going to put 2 coats of this on here, and that way I don't have to put any additional top coat on here. It's a nice warm gray color, and it's going to match the top of the wood, and it's going to match the stain that we did on the drawers. And then the new hardware, we're doing a brown color, so all of these tones are going to go together. They're going to be neutral, but a neutral boho, and just give it a completely new feel. Right here, I'm using Dixie Belle's Best Dang Wax in white, and I am going in one direction first, and then I'm going to push the wax in the other direction. And then I'm going to wipe it back, going in the opposite direction of the grain so that I can get as much of that white wax to sit into the grain as possible. I'm going to allow this to dry for a few days, and then I'm going to go over it with Dixie Belle's Satin Clear Coat. You can do this because the wax is water-based and so is the top coat, and so they work together. They have created a proprietary blend where they work together, so you won't have any issues. Once I allowed the wax to dry for a few days, and I also let the no pain gel stain dry for a few days, I sealed the top with the satin clear coat, and then I sealed all of the drawer fronts with the satin clear coat as well. And this finalized this piece. everybody, this piece is done. This video is done. I hope you enjoyed that. If you've been following me for a while, you know that I like to go above and beyond. So it may be quite a bit of work, but if you've got a smaller dresser, it's not so bad. And this has 8 drawers on it, so it was a little bit more time consuming, but truthfully, this is next level. If you want to take something that's super boring and make it into a statement piece, this is a really great way to do it. This piece is pretty neutral. Gray is white's cousin, but it's like a modern boho. It's got the wood that we redid the top. So it is a huge extreme makeover without being super crazy with color. Now, I promise you guys the next one is going to be colorful. So remember, everything I use is always in the description below. Until next time, I will see you guys later. Have an amazing day, happy creating, and don't forget to subscribe. All right, bye guys.
Hey darling, can I tell you what's been on my mind? Sick and tired of the 9 to 5 in the city life. Hey darling, we could get out of town, see the beautiful world around, wanna see it now. Pack our bags and get in that car, leave a little note and we'll drive real far. Let's get